Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart, dreams break, expectations shatter, and hope feels like a distant memory. We've all been there. We've all faced failure. But let me remind you today, failure is not the end. It is in fact a beginning, a silent teacher, a ruthless sculptor that chips away at your doubt to reveal your strength. When life pushes you to the ground, it's not asking you to give up, it's inviting you to rise differently. We often treat failure as a full stop, but it is only a comma, a pause to breathe, reflect, and restart. The darkest nights produce the brightest stars. And sometimes, falling is what teaches us how to fly. I want you to remember something: your worth is not defined by your achievements or by the applause you receive. It is defined by how many times you chose to try again when it was easier to walk away. You are not broken because you failed. You are brave because you dared. So don't fear failure. Fear a life where you never tried, where you never took the risk, where you never truly lived. Because in the end, failure doesn't destroy you, it discovers you. We live in a world that often equates success with worth and failure with defeat. From a young age, we are taught to chase perfection, to win, to excel. But life, in its truest essence, is not a straight path of victories. It is a winding road, filled with turns we never expected and falls we never planned. And yet, every fall teaches us something that no victory ever could. Failure, despite how it feels in the moment, is not the end of your story. It is a chapter that prepares you for the next, a necessary part of the journey that makes the destination meaningful. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after failure. It's the silence of disappointment, of self-doubt, of unanswered questions. But if you listen closely, within that silence lies an opportunity, a quiet voice that says, now you can begin again. Failure breaks the illusion of certainty. It forces us to pause, to reconsider, and to realign. That break, as painful as it is where transformation begins. Because beginnings don't always arrive with a sunrise or a fanfare sometimes. They arrive with tears, with loss, with an ending you never wanted. In many ways, failure is life's way of stripping away what no longer serves us. It pulls the ground from under our feet so we can finally learn to stand on our own. You may lose things when you fail: jobs, relationships, dreams. But what you gain, if you are willing to look closely, is a deeper understanding of yourself. You begin to discover your strength, not in how high you can fly, but in how quietly and courageously you can stand back up after falling. The beauty of failure lies in its honesty. It doesn't flatter your ego, and it doesn't give you shortcuts. It brings you face to face with your fears, your flaws, and your fragility, and that is a gift. Because the person who emerges from failure is not the same person who walked into it. That person is wiser, softer, and stronger. That person has scars, yes, but those scars speak of growth, not defeat. And in that growth lies the beginning of something new, a you that is more grounded, more resilient, and more real. So, the next time you fail, remember this: something inside you is being reshaped. A door is closing, not to imprison you, but to redirect you. You are being broken open, not to be destroyed, but to be rebuilt, not into what the world expects you to be, but into who you were always meant to become. Resilience is not something we're born with, it's something life teaches us, often in the harshest classrooms. Failure is one of those teachers. When we fall, when we lose, when our plans crumble before our eyes, we are left with a choice: to give in or to grow through it. That is where resilience is born, not in the absence of pain, but in the quiet decision to keep going despite it. Failure peels back the layers of who we thought we were and introduces us to who we really are, not in comfort, but in discomfort, not in certainty, but in challenge. You see, we often believe that strength looks like never falling, never crying, never breaking, but that's a myth. Real strength is not about how loudly you can stand when everything is going well. It's about how silently you rise when no one is watching, when everything inside you says, stay down. It's in those silent, unseen battles that resilience is formed not as a shield, but as a fire. A fire that may flicker, but never fully goes out. Failure is the spark that lights it. When everything is stripped away, the titles, the applause, the approval, and you're left with nothing but your own breath and will, that's when you begin to see your true power. It's not always dramatic or visible to others. Sometimes strength is just getting out of bed after a hard day. Sometimes it's facing the mirror without turning away. Resilience isn't about erasing the pain, it's about carrying it without letting it drown you. And it's through failure that we are forced to tap into that quiet well of strength we never knew existed. What's remarkable is how failure reveals a version of you that is deeper and more capable than the one who succeeded. Success can make you feel proud, but failure, it humbles you. And in that humility, you find depth. You learn how to bend without breaking, how to trust the process, even when the results disappoint. You begin to realize that surviving failure is not a setback, it's a badge of courage. It's proof that you are far more than the outcomes you chase. And so, every failure becomes a silent rehearsal for future strength. Every stumble becomes a step toward resilience. It doesn't happen all at once. It comes slowly, in the late night thoughts, in the early morning starts, in the quiet decision to try one more time. That's where your strength is being built. Not in comfort zones, but in broken places where healing begins, quietly and powerfully. When we fail, it can feel like the end of the road. Everything comes to a sudden halt, the momentum, the belief, the dreams we so carefully built. It feels as if life has pressed a full stop, shutting down every path forward. But failure, in its truest sense, is not a full stop. It's a pause, a moment to catch your breath. A necessary silence before a stronger, wiser beginning. Sometimes we need that pause more than we realize, not to quit, but to reflect, to understand, and to reimagine. In that pause, there is discomfort, yes, but there is also space. Space to ask yourself the questions you never dared to face. What do I truly want? What am I doing this for? Who am I beyond my goals? Failure presses pause not to punish us, but to redirect our attention inward. In the rush of achievement, we often forget to stop and listen to our inner voice. Failure quiets the noise of the world, so we can finally hear ourselves again. And in that stillness, new answers begin to emerge. Think of an artist who steps back from a canvas, not because they are finished, but because they need perspective. Or a musician who pauses mid-song to hear the silence between the notes. That pause is not absence, it is presence. It is where clarity is born. Failure is that moment in your life. You may feel like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, something important is stirring a shift in perspective, a redefinition of purpose, a spark of a new beginning. When life pauses you through failure, it's not taking your dreams away. It's giving you a chance to return to them with sharper focus and deeper conviction. Maybe the version of success you were chasing was never fully aligned with your truth. Maybe the failure was never meant to break you, only to break your pattern. The pause gives you the freedom to redesign your journey, not as someone desperate to avoid failure again, but as someone courageous enough to embrace it as part of the path. So, if you're standing in that pause right now, don't rush through it. Don't mistake it for the end. This is where your resilience deepens and your vision expands. This is where you gather the wisdom you didn't have before. And when you begin again, not despite the failure, but because of it, you'll carry with you not just a plan, but a purpose. And purpose, born from pause, is far more powerful than perfection ever could be. There is no life without risk. Every meaningful step we take, whether it's choosing a career, starting a relationship, speaking our truth, or chasing a dream, comes with uncertainty. But avoiding risk doesn't protect us from pain. It only shields us from growth. We often think that safety lies in staying still, in playing it safe, in never stepping out of our comfort zone. But true safety, real fulfillment, is not found in the absence of risk, it's found in the presence of courage. Because to live fully, we must be willing to lose, to fall, to fail, and still rise anyway. When we choose to avoid failure at all costs, we also unknowingly avoid possibility. We silence our boldest ideas. We shrink ourselves to fit into spaces that feel familiar but unfulfilling. So, the next time you fail, pause, but don't stop. Feel it, but don't fear it. Let it teach you, not define you, because failure is not your enemy, it is your invitation. An invitation to begin again with greater strength, deeper wisdom, and a heart that knows how to rise. You are not here to live a perfect life. You are here to live a full one, and fullness only comes when you've tasted the bitter alongside the sweet, when you've stood back up after falling, when you've dared to try again with a trembling hair. Let failure be your teacher, not your judge. Let it shape you, not shrink you. And most of all, let it remind you of this simple truth. You are not finished. You are becoming. Thank you.